Hello, Internet. It is I, the Malik Aaron, and welcome back to Box Office Predictions. This has been a long time coming, but the time has come for me to talk about Dune 2021. So, as usual, we're going to be going over the pros and cons. So, let's get right to it. Pros. Where do I even start? Well, I guess we can start with the director, the man behind this whole shindig, Denis Villeneuve. This man. I'm guessing you probably heard of this man in like the past few years because he's made quite a name of himself, in the past few years. Some of his movies being Prisoners, Sicario, Arrival, and his last movie, Blade Runner 2049, all being widely acclaimed across the board from pretty much anyone who watched these movies. So he's definitely built up a lot of cred within, the movie community. And when he was announced that he would be making a Dune movie, a lot of people were naturally excited about it because they've seen his previous work, they know how good he is. And yeah, and it's led us to now. So yeah, an easy pro would be that Denis Villeneuve, he's made plenty of good movies, movies that are, loved that for being like ambitious, for being just visually arresting. And some of these movies were considered like the best of their year, particularly Blade Runner 2049. That movie, in my opinion, is damn good, and it deserves so much better than what it got. And I will talk about that when we get to the cons. But before Denis Villeneuve, like his name is very good. He has built up quite the reputation. So yeah, I would consider him to be a pro for this movie. Although I will have to mention Blade Runner 2049 when we get to cons, but we'll get to that later. So Denis Villeneuve, pro. Second pro, the cast. Like, wow. This may be one of the most impressive cast I've seen in quite a long time, really. I mean, let's look at the names that are in here. We got our main lead, Timothy Chalamet, Stellan Skarsgård, Rebecca Ferguson, Jason Momoa, Zendaya, Oscar Isaac, Javier Bardem, Josh Brolin, Dave Bautista's in here. Like many of these people's names are extremely recognizable. Especially Jason Momoa, Oscar Isaac, Josh Brolin, Zendaya. I mean, let's look at Timothy Chalamet. He's made quite a name of himself very quickly, like extremely quickly. Most of you know him from the movie. Yeah, it was Call Me by Your Name. That's the movie where he got like a lot of attention. From. I mean, well, I mean, Call Me by Your Name. I've never seen it. I don't know if I want to see it now because of what happened with Army Hammer and yeah, just ill. But yeah, I know that his claim to fame was that movie, and since then he's just become like a sensation amongst young women. Like they stan him and they simp for him so much, it's crazy. Right? So and plus he's gonna be in the new Wonka movie in like 2 years from now. And yeah, he's also in the French Dispatch, which is coming out this weekend too. So yeah, he's got a lot going on. But that's just Timothy. Then we got, let's see, our next lead, Oscar Isaac. You all know who he is. You should. He's very recognizable. I mean, he was Poe Dameron for better or worse. I would definitely say worse because his character was so mishandled, but his face is still recognizable. And plus, besides the Star Wars movies, he also has a nice track record of like giving off like excellent performances that are not from Star Wars. I think Ex Machina. There we go. Now that's a good one. There was that. And let's see, Annihilation. Yeah, it's mostly yeah, I think Ex Machina is like his was probably considered his best role, and most people just know him from the Star Wars trilogy, which again I don't think is for the best because that trilogy just has aged like milk. Yeah, that was Oscar Isaac. Then we got Rebecca Ferguson, who made her pretty much may name herself with the Mission Impossible movies, particularly Rogue Nation and Fallout. So yeah, she's made a name for herself there. She hasn't been the best material, as you see with Reminiscence and Men in Black International, and well, Greatest Showman wasn't great, but it made a lot of money. And funny enough, Zendaya was in that movie too. So yeah, yeah, but she has a lot of cred. Most people say she is a very good actress. And then we got Jason Momoa, Aquaman himself. Right? He's instantly recognizable. Most people know his face mainly because again, Aquaman. Aquaman made $1 billion, something I thought I would never say ever, but it happened. So yeah, he's an instantly recognizable face. Then we got Zendaya, like Timothy Chalamet. They're actually the same age. They're both 25. Wow, she's only like 4 years older than me, and she's so much more famous than I'll ever be. That's depressing, but uh, yeah, she's mainly known for well, most people know her from like Shake It Up from the Disney Channel, but in the movie world, she's known for her role as MJ in the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. Not to mention Greatest Showman, and she was just in well, she voiced Lola Bunny in Space Jam 2, which I'd like to forget personally. Yeah, she has a huge, huge social media presence, just like Timothy Chalamet. Like those two have massive presence on social media, huge followings. And then who else do we got? Josh Brolin, Thanos, my boy Thanos, and Cable too in Deadpool 2. Yeah, he's got a lot of cred, obviously. And when it comes to like serious movies and comic book movies or like geek movies, like he has a ton of cred thanks to his role as Thanos. And he was in Sicario too, another Denis Villeneuve movie. Wow, that's that's really weird. Um, he's made quite a bit of stuff. Apparently he was in Old Country for No Country for Old Men, which is funny because guess who else was in No Country for Old Men? Why, it's Javier Bardem. Right, he was like the main character in that movie. And he was also in Skyfall too. And Mother, a movie that I think is extremely underrated, but I can understand why people don't like it. Yeah, he has quite a bit of cred too. And pretty much everyone in this cast has, cred. Like they all do in one way or another. Like they all have name value. And while by themselves they may not do all that great, but if you add them all together and make it into like a group package, it becomes way more appealing to the viewer. It's something that happened with Knives Out 2 years ago, where that movie had Daniel Craig, Chris Evans, Michael Shannon, darn, Jamie Lee Curtis, I think Christopher Plummer was in that too. Darn, I can't think of anyone else, but I know that cast was stacked too. And while they don't do like none of those cast members do that well on their own, put them all together, and it just becomes way more appealing. And same thing happening here. You got quite a, all these actors, well known, recognizable. They all have fan bases, so it should be an easy sell, at least with that. So yeah, the cast I would consider a pro. All right, so we got those two, director and cast. What else can I say? Pro number three. This movie has quite a bit of hype, online hype. People have been ranting and raving about this movie for quite a long time. Because again, once people heard Denis Villeneuve was making it, they were just like, "Oh, this has to be good. It has to." And then they heard the cast, they're just like, "Oh my god, this movie could be a masterpiece." And then the first trailer came out last year, got people hyped, even though the movie got delayed a bunch after that. But once it restarted its marketing campaign, the buzz has been pretty positive when it like had its first screening. I think it was at Toronto Film Festival. I forgot which film festival it was. Either was hold on. Yeah, Toronto International Film Festival. Reviews have been very good, reactions been very positive, buzz has been positive. So, yeah, that's an easy pro right there. This movie has good buzz, not bad buzz, good buzz. And fourth pro, I already mentioned this, reviews. They're very good. At last I checked, it's in the 80s. It's like an 84% review wise. And with like audience reaction, I know it's early to talk about that, but it's also quite high, like extremely high. It's like in the 90s right now. I thought it would be lower because as someone who has seen the movie, yes, I did watch this movie. I watched it in theaters. Okay. I didn't watch it on HBO Max. I watched it on the big screen because I don't want to piss off Denis Villeneuve. He's already mad enough about the whole streaming component to this. So I did the respectful thing and I watched it in the cinema. But anywho, yeah, as someone who watched the movie, I was worried that audience reaction wouldn't be very good, but I was wrong because people seem to, at least the people who have seen the movie, seem to really enjoy it. So yeah, so that's another pro. Reviews, reactions, all positive. So yeah, that's a pro. Fifth pro. This weekend, it's pretty lackluster when it comes to content, when it comes to like competition. Venom 2 is pretty much played out. No Time to Die is pretty much played out. Halloween Kills is gonna have a huge drop off, and plus that's the genres for Halloween Kills and Dune couldn't be any more different. And next weekend is looking pretty bleak when it comes to movies. I mean, I know there's 4 movies coming out, but none of them have real hit potential, if you ask me, except maybe My Hero Academia. But besides that, I don't see any of them doing all that well. So Dune has nothing really to worry about until November 5th. That's when the Internals movie comes out. That will do some damage to this movie. But when it comes to competition right now and for the weekend, Dune is pretty much by itself. It's in a league of its own. So, yeah, I would consider that a pro. Another pro that I can think of. Uh, Darn. Well, I guess we can mention that, this is based off a very famous book, a very famous sci fi novel. This novel's been, I think it was like 1969. That's when the novel first debuted. And the book did have a movie adaptation like way back in the 80s. It wasn't very good. And the whole thing was kind of a train wreck. And then like later down the line they had like a mini series on the Sci-Fi Channel like in the early 2000s, I think. And now we're here with this movie. So Dune is a known property amongst sci-fi nerds, sci-fi geeks, sci-fi diehards. They know about Dune and its place within sci-fi culture. So I feel like a decent amount of those people are going to watch this movie out of either curiosity or because they think it'll live up to their expectations. So I guess for that particular group, the name value of this movie has to be a pro. It just has to. Right. For that group. Okay, let me make that clear. For that group, movie has serious name value. For everyone else, it's pretty unclear, and I'll talk about that when we get to the cons. But amongst the sci-fi community, this movie is a huge deal. Huge deal. So, yeah, I'll consider that a pro. And I think last pro is its international box office. As you see here, we have numbers here. This number is actually inaccurate. It should be like 129 million. But yeah, that's how much it's made so far in like the markets it's currently playing at. I think it's the main markets it's playing at are like France, Germany, Italy, Russia. Those are like the main ones. And looking at its international performance, it's doing quite well considering the pandemic situation, especially overseas. Because as we've seen the past few months, the overseas box office has been just a disaster zone. Like it's just been the complete chaos over outside of America. um but Dune somehow has managed to do all right in these circumstances. In fact, compared to Blade Runner 2049, it's doing way better at its current rate. And plus, this was going to be expanded to other markets this very weekend. Obviously in the States, I think the UK too, Mexico, and the big one being China, right? All those markets are getting Dune this weekend. And I think that's definitely going to help the movie. It's going to help its international run because this movie needs all the money it can get because it's very expensive. So, yeah, but at its current rate internationally, it's doing well enough to where even if it does falter domestically, overseas will at least save it from catastrophe. But yeah, I would consider the overseas box office at this point a pro too. Okay. Cons. Cons. I think the biggest con for this movie, well, let's just talk about it. Let's get it out the way. HBO Max. As we've seen throughout this whole year, the HBO Max experiment has been nothing short of a disaster for many, many movies. Even starting last year with like Wonder Woman 1984, that was the starting point. That tanked, and then the Little Things tanked, and then Judas and the Black Messiah tanked, and then Tom and Jerry did pretty decent. Then Godzilla vs Kong did great. Then Mortal Kombat did okay-ish. Then Those Who Wish Me Dead bombed. Then Conjuring 3 did pretty decent. Then In the Heights bombed. Then Space Jam 2 bombed. Then The Suicide Squad bombed. Then Reminiscence bombed. Then Malignant bombed. Then Cry Macho bombed. And Many Saints of Newark bombed. So as you see, the ratio leans heavily towards bomb rather than hit. And that's just terrible. So that does not look good for Dune. Like, its chances of success are extremely limited considering what happened to other HBO Max movies. And I don't know if this is going to break the recent streak of failure that's happened since, In the Heights. Right? Again, we had like 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bombs in a row. Like, how will this movie be number 8? I don't know. Will it break the streak? I don't know. But yeah, it's clear this HBO Max release has done some serious damage to all these movies. Granted, some of these movies would have bombed anyway, with or without HBO Max, with or without the pandemic, but still, this HBO Max release strategy is a clear liability. That's just a fact at this point. Like, the numbers don't lie. They really don't. And I think that's gonna hurt this movie. How much? I don't know. But I think it's gonna eat into its not just its money into, like, this weekend, but later down the line and different and past its opening weekend, because as we've seen, the legs for these HBO Max movies have just been abysmal, absolutely abysmal, and I don't know if this movie's gonna change that. So, the HBO Max release, biggest con of all, no doubt. But when you think about it, the second con is that even without HBO Max, this movie was a giant commercial question mark. It just was. It was never going to be a guaranteed success for a few reasons. One, Dune as a property, sure, it's well known within the sci-fi community, but how known is it outside of that bubble? Like, how many people who are not into sci-fi, how many of those people have heard of Dune? How many of those people have heard of the book, the movie, the miniseries, this? How many people have heard of it? How many people know about it? Right? That's the question you need to really ask, because there is a solid chance of this movie appealing only to the sci-fi group and no one else. Sorry about that voice crack. It only appeals to the sci-fi group and no one else, and that's bad. That that cannot happen, because here's the thing: when it comes to like comics, video games, books, whatever, the goal, like the main goal for it to be a success, like the main thing you need to do is you need to appeal to fans and non-fans simultaneously. You need to appeal to both. If you can do that, you will be a success. And I don't know if Dune has what it takes to appeal to both those groups. I know it will appeal to fans, but for non-fans, like, will they get into this movie? I don't know. I honest to God do not know the answer to that question. And we probably won't know until like the end of the weekend. But yeah, that's like the biggest concern to me, is that I feel like this movie might appeal to only a niche audience. I don't think it's going to be mainstream or have broad appeal. And this has come from someone who's actually seen the movie. So, yeah, I think, will this movie appeal to non-fans? That's going to be the big question mark. And I would consider that a con, because there is a solid chance this could be like a fans only event, and that could kill its box office. So yeah, I would consider that a con. Another con is that, as someone who's seen the movie, yeah, actually I should continue this part, because some people will find this movie boring as sin. Okay, this movie is 2.5 hours. It's a slow burn. Not a whole lot of action. I mean, I know the trailers try to make it more exciting than it really is, but as someone who's seen the movie, trust me, you're gonna be sitting for a while. You're just gonna be watching the screen, and you're just gonna have to wait for things to happen. And I don't think people are gonna like that very much, because it's bad enough for it to be 2.5 hours, but to be a slow burn 2.5 hours, that might just be a deal breaker for some people. I mean, it's not a deal breaker for me. Like, I can handle 2.5 hour movies. I can handle 3 hour movies. All right, I can handle slow burn, but some can't, and they might get turned off by it, or they're just going to be extremely bored. They're just going to sit there idle. They're just going to be like, "Oh my god, when is this movie gonna end?" So yeah. Yeah, I think the whole slow burn aspect of this movie, plus it being 2.5 hours, might be a bit of a detriment to it. So I would consider that a con, definitely. Another con. Denis Villeneuve. Well, this isn't particularly about him. This is about his last movie, Blade Runner 2049, which is quite comparable to this when you really look at it, because uh, yeah, both these movies are based off novels that are written in the 60s. They had movies in the 80s, and then they had 21st century new material from Denis Villeneuve. He's made both of these movies. The main difference is that Blade Runner 2049 is a sequel, while Dune is a reboot. All right. That's the main difference there. But with Blade Runner 2049, despite all the hype, despite all the acclaim, it bombed hard. It only made like 92 million domestic, 258 million worldwide on a budget of 185. Like, that's terrible. That is terrible. This movie lost quite a bit of cash despite it being very good. And I think what really killed that movie was its lack of appeal outside of the sci-fi crowd. And not to mention the movie's over 2.5 hours. So, and it's a slow burn too. So, yeah, if Blade Runner 2049 can't do all that well, then what chance does this movie have really? Because it's more or less the same. When it comes to like certain aspects, it's more or less the same. I mean, again, made by the same guy. So, yeah, I mean, I guess the one advantage this movie has in comparison to Blade Runner 2049 is that Dune is PG-13, Blade Runner 2049 was R, so this can catch a much wider net of people. So at least it has that going for it, but still, I mean, after what happened with Blade Runner 2049 and how it became such a huge failure, it made me extremely nervous about how Dune was going to do. Like, is Dune going to have the same fate? Is it just going to be a critically acclaimed bomb, just like Blade Runner 2049? So yeah, I would consider what happened to Blade Runner 2049 a con that might repeat itself with this movie. Like, history just might repeat itself here. I certainly don't want that to happen, but there is a strong chance of that happening. Well, I mean, at least overseas, it should do way better than Blade Runner 2049. It should. That's guaranteed. But domestically, I do not know. I'm hoping I'm really hoping history doesn't repeat itself here. So, yeah, I'll consider it a con. What other cons can I think of? I think that's it, at least with like the main ones. Uh yeah. I think that's it. So now, opening weekend. Mm-mm-mm. This is so hard because with like pretty much all my HBO Max predictions, I have failed my predictions pretty much each and every time because I've been so off the mark on some of them, particularly in The Heights and Reminiscence, two of my most embarrassing predictions ever. All right. I'm just not confident in my ability to predict HBO Max movies. I'm really not. But I mean, the official projection out there is 30 to 35 million, right? That's like the official number that people are throwing out. I think that's achievable. Oh, wait, I didn't even mention this. Two other movies that can be compared to this somewhat. Tron Legacy and Mad Max Fury Road. I mean, both had movies in the 80s too, and they both had 21st century, new material. Even though those two movies were sequels, this was a reboot. Still, there are some serious similarities with like all these movies. And even with those movies, like they opened with like what, like at 45, 44 million and made like, I know Tron Legacy made like 400 million, Mad Max made like 370. And both those movies, well, Mad Max Fury Road is great. Tron Legacy not so much, but I think it's all right. But neither of those movies were exactly smash hits. And yeah, I don't know. Like, will Dune match that 45 million? I seriously doubt it because I didn't even mention this. The biggest opening weekend for an HBO Max movie is Godzilla vs Kong, and that opened with like 32 million. And I seriously thought that record was going to be broken with the Suicide Squad, and that did not happen. So I don't know if Dune will break that. Will it? Who knows? But I'm gonna go on the safe side and just have the same numbers everyone else has, 30 to 35 million. I think that's where I'm at. I think it will open on the same level as Blade Runner 2049, for better or worse. I don't think it's gonna reach Tron Legacy and Mad Max Fury Road numbers. It would be a miracle if it could do that. But yeah, 30 to 35 million I think is reasonable for this movie. I think it has a slim chance of beating Godzilla vs Kong if enough non-fans show up to see the movie. Even if they don't like it, if they at least show up to support it, then it might have a chance to be successful in the States. But again, I don't know. This is all just speculation at this point. So we'll just have to see what happens. But yeah, Dune, I don't know. I don't know. Is this whole movie is a giant question mark. I mean, again, I've seen the movie. I like it. And again, but just because I like it doesn't mean everyone else will. All right. And not to mention, this is technically half of a movie because the plan is to make a sequel, right? Like if you watch the movie, like the beginning credits, like with the title card, it says Dune Part 1. So there's supposed to be a sequel, but that sequel hasn't been greenlit yet, mainly because Warner Brothers is waiting to see what happens with the box office, not to mention what happens with the HBO Max viewing numbers. And apparently Warner Brothers said, they told Denis Villeneuve, they were like, "Oh, hey man, as long as this movie does well on HBO Max, you'll get your sequel." I don't know if they're gonna stick to that promise, but I guess again we'll have to wait and see. And I'm pretty sure they're telling Denis Villeneuve that because when the whole HBO Max experiment was announced, he was very, 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 very pissed off. He made a whole rant calling HBO Max like the worst streaming service. Like it was something else. Like he was very pissed. And he still is angry about it. Not as angry, but he's still mad. So I'm hoping this movie gets like the best of both worlds. Enough people see it both in theaters and on HBO Max. That when we get that sequel, if we don't get that sequel, I feel like um there's gonna be a riot. People are gonna riot in the streets because again, this movie feels very incomplete. If you've seen the movie, it just feels like it doesn't even have a real ending. And yeah, like please watch the movie. I'm begging. Please watch the movie either on HBO Max or in theaters. Just watch it so we get the damn sequel. Okay, so just do it. Okay, just do it. Ideally, go to the theater to watch it because this is a big movie, big spectacle movie, big epic. I think it deserves to be on the big screen. It's worthy of being on the big screen, definitely. Yeah, please watch it. I don't want another tragedy like the Suicide Squad or Blade Runner 2049. Please watch the movie. Please support it. Please. Okay, that's the end of Dune. Next up for this weekend, we got Ron's Gone Wrong, which is just going to be a real interesting video. And then that'll be it for the weekend. Next weekend, that's going to, oh my God. I got 4 movies to cover. Jesus Christ. I got Antlers, I got Last Night in Soho, A Mouthful of Air, and My Hero Academia World's Heroes Mission. I don't know, but I think the French Dispatch is supposed to be wide that weekend. It hasn't been 100% confirmed yet. But if that's wide, then I have five movies to cover. Ugh, that's just gonna be awful. So I'm not looking forward to next weekend. So, but at least the first beginning weekend of November, we got one movie to talk about, Eternals. So I'm happy about that. But yeah, next weekend is gonna be rough for me. But yeah, anywho, yeah, that's it. That's all. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, turn on notifications, share the whole drill. Want to check out more videos like this? Got a playlist on the homepage. Fill of all previous, prediction videos I made this year. I've done all the HBO Max movies, all of them. Godzilla vs Kong, Space Jam 2, The Suicide Squad, Mortal Kombat, Conjuring 3, In the Heights, all of them. I've covered them all. If you want to watch those, you can go right ahead just to see how laughably bad my predictions were. And you can laugh and mock me for them because I deserve to get mocked for some of those predictions because they were just truly that bad. Yeah, but if you want to watch those, you can go right ahead. There's also the canceled series where I go over all the movies that were supposed to come out but didn't. I made 2 episodes regarding all the Marvel stuff being delayed, like a lot of Phase 4 movies being delayed, and another one about some other minor movies like Lost City and Bad Guys, a bunch of minor stuff. So I made 2 recent canceled episodes, 84 and 85. If you want to watch those or watch all the other canceled videos I made up to this point, you can go right ahead. There's also box office recaps where I go over the box office results for any particular month. October recap will come out the first week of November, so stay tuned for that. But if you want to watch any of the past recap videos I made, you can go right ahead. And yeah, that's it. That's all. I am out. Goodbye.